Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, are heading into an official visit weekend that just feels massive. And the reason I say it is for two different reasons. Number one, massive fan of some of the kids that they're going to have on campus over the next couple of days. But I think just as importantly, you look at Florida in the 2026 cycle and you start looking at the pathways for Florida to sign a top 10 class in the country. I think a lot of these kids that will be on campus over the next couple of days are guys that will probably be committing to Florida if Florida does get to a top 10 class in the country. This is a program that excites me heading into June. You look at across the country, there are not many programs that I see as a more attractive destination for these kids at the high school ranks than the Florida Gators for a couple of different reasons. I mean, number one, they finally, at least in my opinion, seem to be turning the corner. I mean, this is a program that we expect to compete for championships in 2025, and we expect to compete for championships over the next couple of years. I think number two, they're one of those really few programs that are really relying on their high school kids to go out and play good football. There are a lot of other programs that are going out and adding 15, 20 transfer portal additions every single year. Florida's not one of them. Like you commit and sign with Florida, you are going to be asked to play, and you're probably going to be asked to play pretty damn early. That's another thing that I think makes Florida extremely attractive is not only are they competing at a very high level, and we expect them to compete at a very high level, they're doing that with a lot of young talent. I mean, you look at the amount of youngsters that played for Florida in 2024 and the amount of young talent that we expect to play for them in 2025, that matters to these kids at the high school ranks. They're seeing Florida compete at a high level, and they're seeing kids that are only 1 or 2 years older out there on the football field. I'll look at this and say they're checking all the boxes. Now, can Florida go out and cap they built? That's what we're looking for in the month of June. And one of the things that, look, I've been critical in the past of Billy Napier. I've gotten up here and have said that I don't think Billy Napier is the right man for the job. And he's obviously proven me wrong over the last couple of months. One of the things that I consistently love about Billy Napier, he's not worried about the outside noise. And so, as much as the national media wants to make a big deal about Florida only having two commitments, I think Billy Napier's sitting there and saying he probably likes the spot they're in going into this month of official visits. Want to get into some of the players that will be on campus. Before we do, and as always, to the Florida fans, I want to say thank you to you guys. And many of y'all have been rocking with the boys for the last couple of years. It's been really fun talking this program from a nitty gritty roster building standpoint. The amount of support that y'all continue to show to the fellas in the offseason as we talk the recruiting trail means the absolute world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start with really one of my favorite edge rushers that you see in the 2026 cycle. That is Ashari Charles from Venice, Florida. I think he's kind of flying under the radar because he's listed at 6'2". And although he is 6'2", a little bit of a squattier edge defender, he's got 34-inch arms, 10.5-inch hands. I mean, this is a guy that, yeah, he might not necessarily be 6'5", but he's got 6'5" length. That helps when you're playing on the line of scrimmage because you have good pad level. You got good leverage because you're a little bit shorter, but you still have that length. Really heavy hands. I mean, devastatingly powerful kid, lower body up. This is the kind of edge defender that Billy Napier in Florida clearly like. Look, if you went to Billy Napier and said, hey, would you rather take a Tyreek Sapp or a guy like Princely U? I think he's taking Tyreek Sapp every single day of the week. Now, Princely U might be a better pure pass rusher than Tyreek Sapp, although Tyreek Sapp has really improved his ability to rush the passer. We want guys who can stop the run too. And I look at Ashari Charles and say really good at the point of attack. Block destruction and getting off blocks is one of his strong suits. Also can get after the passer, and it's not because he's like super bursty and bendy, but because of that devastating power, similar to Tyreek Sapp. We're just walking tackles into the lap of the quarterback. Florida has had a plan in terms of how and what kind of players they want to add to this roster. And I look at Ashari Charles and say, this is the kind of edge defender that Florida has historically liked. Those heavy handed guys that are very good against the run, but also can give you pass rush juice. Really excited to see if Florida can create some headway with Ashari Charles coming into this official visit. Number 2, Brilen Wack. And I'm going to say something a little bit crazy here, but I kind of do feel it a little bit. There are some serious Caleb Down vibes to a guy like Brilen Wack. Now, the difference between Brilen Wack and Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs played 6A football in the state of Georgia. Brilen Wack playing a little bit of a lesser competition in the state of Mississippi. This kid makes it look so easy on the football field, and there's not a thing that you can't ask him to do. Very similar to Caleb Downs, where he can play in the box, he can play as a single high, he can operate in man coverage. You're saying all the same things for a guy like Brilen Wack. Now, it sounds like Ohio State is probably the leader in the clubhouse, but I think Florida's got a very good shot here. If you're Florida, number one, what you're selling is early playing time in the safety room. I mean, we have consistently played young safeties, whether it's Jordan Castell, whether it's Bryce Thornton, whether it's probably going to be guys like Drake Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward, who we all expect to play a decent amount of football over the next couple of years. This kid's ready to play early, and I think Florida provides that opportunity to go out and do it. Really good relationship with Vinny Sinceri. He fits what Coach Roberts wants to do on defense. And then I look at Ohio State and say, yeah, Ohio State might be the leader in the clubhouse. Ohio State has 3 safeties already committed. Can you say, hey, you're our guy? Maybe you're not the number one guy for Ohio State, but you're the number one guy for us at Florida. Maybe that's something Billy Napier and Florida can leverage over the next couple of days. Number 3 on the list, let's go to Vodney Cleveland. We've talked a lot about this. There are not many guys that look like Vodney Cleveland, especially in this area of the United States. It's, in my opinion, one of the weaker interior defensive line cycles we've seen in a very long time. Vodney Cleveland, one of those guys that's the best in this region. And I think Florida's got a very good chance at land. What I'll say about Florida here is that although the interior defensive line class in 2026 leaves a little bit to be desired, it does seem like Florida is leading for some of the best guys in this area. That's huge for Florida, not only because if you can get some of these recruitments done, your line of scrimmage play is going to be really good over the next couple of years, but you're also taking away from teams like Georgia and teams like Alabama, teams that you're going to have to compete for with the next couple of years to go out and win SEC championships. I look at a few of these names and say, if Florida can win some of these battles, massive advantage for Florida over the next couple of years, especially on the defensive line. And we talk about this all the time. How do you close the gap in the SEC? How do you catch a team like Georgia? You got to look like them against along the lines of scrimmage. And that's something that Florida has done a really good job of at the high school ranks. Number 4 on the list, and arguably the most fascinating prospect in the 2026 cycle, Hezzie Kent. Now, everything I've read is he is committed to playing the tight end position. And I'll say this, you turn on the film and say that this is one of the best 300-pound athletes that I have seen come out of high school. Now, do I still think the higher upside and the ceiling for this kid is at tackle? Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're talking 6'5", 300 pounds. The way this kid moves, it's elite. But if he wants to play tight end, we'll take you as a tight end too, because one, he's a dog as an inline run blocker because he's essentially a 6 tackle on the offensive line. And we know Florida likes to ask a lot of their tight ends in the run blocking department. He's also got this kind of like matchup nightmare vibe where it's like who's running and covering a guy like Hezzie Kent. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to separate, but he can run. And there's just that massive body is so hard to deal with, and he's really coordinated too. Again, I like him at tackle a little bit more. I think there is some serious upside for this kid at the tackle position. One of those guys that you take and say, hey, wherever you want to play, we'll take you because we want you on our football team. Number 5 on the list, Jarrell and McCoy from the state of Mississippi. Kelby Collins, LJ McCrae kind of vibes. So, a little bit of a tweener. I think he's closer to 6'6", 270 pounds at this point. Could play out on the edge, could play on the inside. The biggest thing with him, and the thing that Florida probably messed up with Kelby Collins, and a guy that, like, I guess the best way to say it is, when Kelby Collins came to Florida, there was a lot. He was a tweener. We knew he was a tweener. In Florida, and Kelby never really committed on a position. There was some buzz about him playing on the inside, then there was some buzz playing on the edge, and it never clicked because he never really had consistency at one of those positions. You're hoping to get a better result from a guy like LJ McCrae. The biggest thing with Jarrell McCoy is, hey, bring him into your program and make sure you commit to the position he wants to play. Like, whether it's playing on the inside and getting up to 280 to 300 pounds, do that, or leave him out on the edge and keep him at 260, 270. But you got to make sure you commit on a position there. A little bit of a tweener. Last one, CJ Brona. I don't think there's been a bigger riser in the recruiting rankings than this kid. It has been committed to Nebraska for a decent amount of time now. In-state kid in Florida, 6'1", 170, 10.25 in the 100-meter dash. He's a box checker. Like, you're looking for guys that have the frame and have the long speed to run with SEC wide receivers. This kid has it. A little bit stiff at times, but he makes up for it with the explosiveness he has. His ability to close down on throwing windows with that track and field speed is absolutely elite. Another guy that, look, in the SEC, you need freak cornerbacks because you're going to have to deal with a lot of freaky wide receivers. This kid's one of them. Arguably the fastest player in this 2026 cycle. All of these guys that we just mentioned for Florida are guys that Florida leads for, or guys that Florida's in the kind of like the top contender grouping for. Can you go out and close on some of these guys? Probably has a big say in where Florida sits in the 2026 cycle. Those are some of my favorite players on campus. They got double-digit guys coming, but I wanted to highlight some of my favorites. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.